Back at on Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Please head over to our YouTube page, Locked On Sports Atlanta. If you go to YouTube and put in the browser Locked On Sports Atlanta, you will find us there. Subscribe to the channel. We appreciate everybody being a part of the community as it is growing every day. And, of course, give us a review. Tell us what you think. Give us a comment as well. Follow me on my Twitter page. Like I said, my Twitter was blowing up last night thanks to all the new people that were following me at JMCH316. Now, one other quick narrative before we go into what I said about this having been done before. People acted like last night was Terry Fontenot's first draft. I actually had some people on my Twitter page. Well, you got to give Terry Fontenot time in his first draft. He was here last year. Did you miss that when we had our unicorn in the first round? Our second round pick played 23.5% of the snaps last year. You had the worst interior offensive lineman in the league that started in your third round pick. 2 bums in the fourth round, and then your fifth round player that you quote unquote thought was one of your edge rushers barely got on the field and couldn't sack the quarterback if his life depended on it. Did we miss that? Okay. Anyway. Now, the Falcons have selected in back-to-back drafts. They've had back-to-back top 10 picks in the draft and have selected back-to-back pass catchers, 2 pass catchers in consecutive drafts in the top 10. Do you know that this has been done before? The last time that this was done in the NFL was by, drum roll, the Detroit Lions. In 2004, the Detroit Lions took Roy Williams, wide receiver out of Texas. Then in 2005, they took Mike Williams, wide receiver out of Southern Cal. No doubt about it, 2 top 10 worthy picks. 2 tremendous players when they came out of college. Want to know how the Lions did? Okay. In 2004, when they drafted Roy Williams, that year they went 6-10. The next year when they drafted Mike Williams, they went 5-11. The next year when they had them both together, let's rock and roll, ready to go, 3-13. The next year, okay, we're ready to pick things up. Things are going to get going. What are we? 7-9. Okay, cool. Not great, but we're ready to build. 5th year, 4 years into Mike Williams' career, 5 years into Roy Williams' career. How do we do? 0-16. Does that sound like a good track record when you've drafted pass catcher in 2 consecutive drafts in the top 10? Now, I brought this up a couple of weeks ago. What is our offensive philosophy? So Matt Ryan, the last 4 years, averaged 600 pass attempts. And y'all pissed and moaned about, well, he's throwing it too much and we can't protect him and this, that, and the other. Well, you've just invested in a pass catcher in back-to-back drafts for the first time in 17, 18 years in the league. What are you going to do? You're going to run the football now? I have 2 top 10 picks. You damn sure better be throwing it all over the yard. Oh, what's that? We have Marcus Mariota. What is Marcus Mariota's best ever number, highest ever number in a season for pass attempts? We just said Matt Ryan, in a 4-year stretch, the last 4 years, averaged 600 pass attempts. You know what Marcus Mariota's best number is? 453. 150 less attempts than Matt averaged over a 4-year stretch. And you have 2 top 10 in back-to-back draft pass catchers. You still can't protect your quarterback, still can't run the football, still can't do a whole lot, but we sure have a lot of draft capital and all of the things that, what are they going to do for our offense? Are you telling me that this will be the best offense in the NFL? It damn sure better be if you're telling me that we've gone back-to-back drafts with pass catcher. Now, let's go back to Julio Jones in 2010 when the Falcons traded up from whatever it was, 21-22, up to number 6 and took Julio. They had lost to the Green Bay Packers at home in the playoffs off of a 13-3 season. Why'd they go get Julio Jones? They invested all this draft capital in Julio. You forget about that. No, because they were ready to win the Super Bowl. They thought they had a Super Bowl ready roster. They thought they had their offense figured out. Tony Gonzalez, Hall of Fame tight end. Roddy White was a top-tier wide receiver. Michael Turner had one of the best couple-of-year runs as a running back in the history of the Falcons organization. They had their offensive line figured out. They had their quarterback figured out, Matt Ryan. He was getting into the prime of his career, and they thought, let's go roll the dice on a big-time playmaker because we got to be the Green Bay Packers. And they traded up and got Julio Jones. That's why they did that. Not because they need wide receivers and their room's not good and all that. There are times when it makes sense to go up and do that. But you've had back-to-back top 10 picks on pass catcher with a quarterback that's never thrown it more than 450 times in a year. And, okay, let's say they draft a quarterback today in the second round, a guy who's never played in the league. So I got all these guys that are pass catchers now. Because if you've drafted 4th and 8th in back-to-back years with pass catcher, that's a lot of draft capital, folks. Well, your team is built in the 2nd through the 6th round. If you think that building a team is sustainable by missing on your first-round draft picks, you're crazy. You are insane. You're telling me you know nothing about the NFL without telling me you know nothing about the NFL. You can get over the hump with your 2nd, 3rd round picks. You can't get a viable franchise without first-round talent. And miss me with the whole Tom Brady nonsense. You're using the one outlier in the entire, how many years is the NFL now? 100 years? You're using the one outlier in the 100-year history of the NFL telling me about Tom Brady. There's no player in the entire history of the league. How many players have played in the NFL? Tens of thousands? There's 100,000? There's never been a player in the history of the league like Tom Brady. And you're going to use that as an outlier. Miss me with that nonsense. Save that argument for the dummies, okay? Save that argument for them. If you can't hit on your first-round picks and they aren't impact players to your football team, you won't be good. You won't be good. You can get over the top and get up to the next level when you draft really well in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, but that's not the core of your team. That's not the basis of how you draft your team. That's not where the functional foundation of your team comes from. You know what happens when you miss on your first rounders? You still end up drafting high in the first round every single year. The Texans really haven't missed that often on their first rounders, have they? I mean, they've had some guys that have been, but, you know, when guys are coming and going and you don't hit enough in your other rounds, so your franchise never gets over the hump. You have to build off the core of your first-round draft picks. There's a reason why the NFL sets it up that the worst teams pick at the top, the best teams pick at the bottom. There's a reason why there's no lottery system in the NFL. It's because it's designed to draft high-caliber players and turn your franchise around quickly. Isn't that a funny thing? That's how the draft is set up? Bad teams draft high, good teams draft low. It's not hard to figure out. Okay, so when we come back, we are going to talk about something. We're going to follow the money, right? If you want to know the truth of anything in life, the saying always is, follow the money. Well, guess what? We're going to follow the money in the NFL to help you understand and enlighten you a little bit about what is and is not important in the NFL. It is Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.